Hello everyone, welcome to yet another session of the daily news analysis by SRIRAM'S IAS, where we take up the important articles that feature in the Hindu newspaper and break them down for our understanding from the examination point of view. Let's start today's discussion by taking the important articles from the newspaper. The important articles which we've taken up for the discussion are on our screens, and let's take up the first article for the day. The first article appears as a data point in the text and context section, which talks about seaweed production. Remember, I'm talking about a particular type of weed, that is seaweed. So this article says that India's potential for seaweed production is around 9.7 million tons, which India can reach, and India is currently producing 34,000 tons, which it produced in 2021. So the article highlights the potential of India in seaweed production. But what is the seaweed production? What do we mean by seaweed, and what is its immense potential that is being talked about? So via this article, we'll delve into the concept of seaweed farming, seaweed cultivation, the increasing importance that is being ascribed to seaweed and its cultivation, what are the multifaceted use and benefits of seaweed that are important for us. So we'll take a look at all of that, and that is why this topic becomes extremely important, because this is the new age of blue economy. We often hear our Prime Minister talk about encouraging the blue economy, right? What do we mean by blue economy? That system of increasing the economic activities in the ocean region, that is known as blue economy. So seaweed cultivation forms an integral part of enhancing the blue economy of India, and that is why this will become a part for us to study from the perspective of GS3, where we study Indian economy and parts of environment as well, right? So what do we mean by seaweed? Let's first take a look at what is seaweed. This is how seaweed looks. Now, seaweeds are also eaten, especially in the Southeast Asian countries and in regions. Seaweeds are widely consumed, and this is a snapshot of seaweed cultivation, farming of the seaweed that is going on. So what exactly are seaweeds? As we can see, they are macroscopic algae, which means that they are larger size algae. They can be called as larger algae. They constitute several species of marine plants and algae, and seaweeds may also include red, green and brown algae. And seaweeds can grow in ocean, rivers, lakes and other water bodies. And there are many types of seaweeds such as nori and laver seaweed. There are different types of seaweeds which are available around the world, and seaweeds are attracting interests all around the world for its potential in commercial exploitation and the sustainability needs. So the interest that is being garnered for seaweed is on a lot of grounds. We'll see the multifaceted use of seaweeds. But what are the characteristics of seaweed? So we understood that these are larger algae. They are not necessarily classified as plants, but they do perform photosynthesis. Therefore, they are larger size algae. So what are their characteristics? They are macroscopic and multicellular organisms, and some species of seaweeds are microscopic also, such as the phytoplankton. So when we study the aquatic food chain, the smallest size organism that exists in the aquatic ecosystem are the phytoplanktons on which the fishes and other animals feed. So the seaweeds are also microscopic, such as phytoplanktons, and are macroscopic or larger sized as well. And seaweed can be small as the one-celled phytoplankton, as large as the giant kelp. So these, what we saw, these are known as kelps. Larger seaweed farms would be known as kelps. They are cumulatively known as kelp forests, right? And even though seaweeds are not categorized as plants, they also require light, water and nutrition for the growth and sustenance, which means that they perform photosynthesis, right? So these are the characteristics of seaweeds. Now we've understood that, okay, these are marine plants which are found in various water bodies such as rivers, lakes and other water bodies. Mainly they are harvested in the ocean, right? Ocean waters. So India has a about 7,000 kilometer large coastline. So therefore India has a large potential for indulging into seaweed cultivation. So let's take a look at India's scenario. All the coastal areas in India, especially the Gujarat Gulf region, Gulf of Khambat region, Gulf of This is Gulf of Mannar region, in and around Tamil Nadu and Kerala. These regions are especially high potential areas for seaweed farming. So what is the scenario in India? Out of the global seaweed production of 32 million tons. So globally, 32 million tons of seaweed production is carried out for various purposes, for eating purposes, for we'll take their look at their uses. But 32 million tons of seaweed production is done, valued around 12 billion US dollars, which means that the seaweed industry is valued at around 12 billion US dollars. And how much is India contributing to it? China produces 57% of this. So China is again the leader in seaweed production as well, because again China also has a large coastline and is quite efficient in its blue economic activities. Then comes Indonesia at 28%, followed by South Korea, whereas India is having a mere share of 0.1 to 0.2%. This is the sign which highlights that India needs to step up on its activities on seaweed production. So therefore, despite several advantages, commercial seaweeds cultivation has not taken place in the country at an appropriate scale as being practiced in Southeast Asian countries. That is why the need to increase India's seaweed production. So what did the article highlight? That out of this 32 million tons, 9.7 million tons India can produce as a via its large coastline and potential areas from seaweed cultivation. India has around 800 species of seaweed in its coastline, and 40 of them can be commercially cultivated. So therefore India is having large potential in the seaweed cultivation sector. So when they say that it's valued at $12 billion, so much of seaweed is being cultivated, what are its uses that this plant in the ocean is being cultivated? What use does this plant have? So let's take a look at that. What are the benefits or uses of seaweed? So this set of marine plants has multifaceted benefits and its uses in different industries. One is obviously in the marine ecosystem, where it is growing. It takes care of a lot of activities. They are primary producers in the marine ecosystem, which means that they are the plants which are producing the food, and the other marine animals will feed on these plants, so they become the primary producers. That automatically makes them a very important part in the marine ecosystem and essential for numerous other organizations for food and habitat needs, like the phytoplankton, which various other animals eat and survive on, and they can also improve the conditions of coastal waters for the benefit of other living organisms and the environment. So their presence in the coastal waters has a lot of benefits for human beings as well and for the other animals as well. Then their use in aquaculture. What do we mean by aquaculture? Aquaculture is the farming of animals and plants in the aquatic environment or in the water environment. So seaweed cultivation holds enormous potential in improving the livelihood as well as increasing the sustainability of fish farming through integrated practices. This is where Indian government wants the farmers of the coastal states of India to indulge into, that apart from normal cultivation, apart from fisheries cultivation, they should also indulge into seaweed cultivation, what we saw in the picture. By cultivating this, it can create an alternative source of employment for them, and it can diversify their income sources, right? And it also provides development and alternative livelihood opportunities for the underprivileged coastal communities across the world where overfishing is a common practice. So this can also shift the burden from overfishing, and where fishes are more cultivated and it is proving as a burden on the marine ecosystem, it can be balanced by cultivating seaweed as well. And seaweed has multiple uses from which this cultivation, it will go into all those sectors. What are those uses? So first use is it comes in industries. These seaweeds are also used in industries. How so? To manufacture various kinds of products such as polysaccharides, proteins, phenols, all of them are extracted from these seaweeds. These seaweeds have the extraordinary capacity to absorb a lot of nutrients. So they contain a lot of nutrients, and these nutrients become important for our food palette as well, and for the industries as well who are interested in extracting these nutrients or chemicals out. So therefore they have enormous commercial value. It can be used as effective emulsifiers or binding agents in goods such as toothpaste and fruit jelly. Emulsifiers are generally used as preservatives in packaged foods where they need to increase the shelf lives. So we have emulsifiers in such kind of products. So they are also used in manufacturing toothpaste and fruit jelly as well. And they can also be used as softeners or emoluments in organic cosmetics and skin care products. So we can see the uses where they are also used in cosmetic and skin care products as well. So even the industries have a wide application of the seaweed. Then coming to health. Now why do people of Southeast Asian countries and coastal countries consume this seaweed? Because it has immense health benefits. Like I said, it is packed with nutrients, so it is highly nutritious, full of vitamins, minerals and fiber, but also tastier as well. And the brown seaweed benefits include proper thyroid functioning as it contains iodine and tyrosine. So it helps in curbing thyroid. It holds different varieties of protective antioxidants. So we can see that it's packed with vitamins, minerals, fiber, thyroid reducing benefits, antioxidants. It also helps in reducing weight and reducing the risk of heart disease. And the dried seaweed or kelp is a common addition to the Japanese dishes such as a sushi dish. So sushi contains seaweed, and a lot of their other dishes also contain the seaweed. And benefits of dried seaweed include healthy brain function and increased immunity. So while looking at the health benefits, it looks like by only eating seaweed one can stay healthy. It has so much benefits. But this is the background of the benefits that seaweeds contain. Then they have a role in pharmaceuticals as well. Of course, when the nutrients are packed, they can be extracted and used to manufacture medicines as well. They contain anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial agents. What do we mean by anti-inflammatory agents? Those agents which what we call swelling. So swelling or inflammation of the skin, those have anti-inflammatory properties, which means that they can heal the wound. And antimicrobial, which means that they can kill the pathogens or microbes which cause a lot of skin infections or diseases. So these agents inside them can also be extracted and used in the pharmaceutical industry. Some seaweeds possess effective cancer fighting agents as well that will prove to be effective in the treatment of tumors and leukemia. So even the pharmaceutical sector has wide importance with regards to seaweed. And during the pandemic, hand sanitizers were also made from this plant, that is seaweed. And then it has role in agriculture as well. How? Liquid seaweed fertilizer is organic. So seaweed is also used in manufacturing fertilizers in the agriculture sector. Not just the fertilizer, but they are also served as good feed for the farm animals. So rather than preparing fodder in a conventional sense, their fodder can be substituted with seaweed. Substituting their fodder with seaweed also has benefits. We'll look at it in the climate mitigation sector, right? So these are the uses in agriculture as well, where they're used in manufacturing fertilizer and can be used to substitute the fodder for the animals as well. Then when so many benefits are there, they can be also used to harness energy. So they can be converted to various types of fuels such as biodiesel, bioethanol and butanol. We are already looking at converting sugarcane and other such glucose containing substances into bioethanol and biodiesel. So even seaweed can be used to convert that into eco-friendly fuels. Like the fossil fuels, seaweeds also produce CO2 when burnt, but it is carbon neutral, which means that the carbon dioxide that is released by seaweed while burning them is much less or equal to the carbon dioxide that is absorbed by the seaweeds. They are plants, right? They also absorb carbon dioxide while they are formed, so they can be called as carbon neutral, right? Which means it only releases CO2 which we were recently removed from the atmosphere through the photosynthesis during the growth of seaweed. So when they are growing, they absorb CO2 as well, and by burning, when they release CO2, it can be said that they are carbon neutral. And then they also have uses in mitigation and adaptation in climate change. How so? Both wild and farm seaweeds can contribute as carbon sinks. Like we said right now, they are carbon sinks, which means that being plants, they will absorb carbon dioxide by removing carbon directly from the water column and keeping it in their tissues. With this ability to store carbon for a longer term, seaweeds help fight climate change. They also help lower the greenhouse gases emissions from the agriculture. This is where the use comes where the fodder can be substituted by seaweed by other conventional uses, is that when the animals eat seaweed as their fodder, less methane is secreted from the animals. So there as well, it helps reducing the greenhouse gases, where methane is one of the greenhouse gases. And then it also helps in climate change adaptation by breaking wave energy, defending shorelines, and by increasing pH and providing oxygen to the waters, thus lowering the effects of the ocean acidification and deoxygenation. Now this is also a very important contribution of seaweeds, where they grow in the coastal areas, so they can defend the coastline with the incoming cyclones, incoming floods that can come, the beach erosion that happen. The seaweeds even protect from beach erosion, and apart from that, they take care of the pH of the ocean level, so they take care of the increasing menace that is being talked about in the world right now, that of oceanic acidification. The oceans of our world are going increasingly acidic in nature, so seaweed can also protect from that as well. So this is what we saw from the multifaceted benefits that seaweed possess, not just in terms of cultivation for eating or food purposes, but also in various industries, agriculture sector, aquaculture sector, and in energy and climate change mitigation as well. So that is why this industry is valued at the $12 billion US, and India has the potential to step up its game and increase its production. So what are the challenges that are there when we talk about seaweed cultivation? Why is it not able to pick up? So the challenges are that there are labor shortages during the paddy harvesting and transplanting season. Those laborers who are working in the agriculture sector, in this seaweed cultivation sector, can face labor shortages, and there is lack of livelihood security. Sure, there is livelihood opportunities, but the security of this livelihood is not that high due to low wages and bad weather. So bad weather in the coastal areas can hamper the farming of seaweed. And then lack of technology to improve processed products, right? So not the advanced technology with respect to how to cultivate seaweed is not really present, and lack of information on new and alternative sources of raw material. Risky, as they must be collected from the depths of more than 25 to 30 feet to collect seaweed. It is also risky to collect the seaweed, and then over-exploitation is also an issue, which is not the case with India, but this has started to be the case with countries like Japan and South Korea, where they have already reached a stage of over-exploitation of cultivation of seaweed, right? Then lack of awareness about health benefits acts as a hindrance to nutrition transition among the population. This we know that there is quite lack of awareness with respect to the uses of seaweed, and there is therefore less market demand as well. Since there is lack of awareness, people do not know about the benefits, there is less demand in the market for this, and there is lack of support from the government as well. So in order to take care of these challenges which are present with regards to seaweed farming, the government of India launched the Seaweed Mission last year. So let's take a look at the Seaweeds Mission, which was launched by the government in 2001. It was launched by the body known as TIFAC or TIFAC. What is this? This is an autonomous organization set up in 1988 under the Department of Science and Technology. We saw that various ministries have sub-departments under them. So this is under the Department of Science and Technology. Under which ministry will this department be? This will be under the Ministry of Science and Technology. So this is a body which looks, this is an autonomous organization under this department, and it looks ahead in the technology domain, assesses the technology trajectories, and support innovation by network action in select areas of national importance. So since seaweed is an upcoming innovation with respect to changing the dynamics of eating, health, as well as energy and climate mitigation, TIFAC launched this mission in 2021. So what does this mission entail? It has been launched for commercial farming of seaweeds and its processing for value addition towards boosting the national economy. So like I said, in order to boost the blue economy of the country and support commercial farming for seaweeds, this mission has been launched. So what is it going to do? It envisages the following activities. That is, first, establishing model demonstration farms. So like we saw in the challenges, that there are less awareness about the technology that is to be used, the practices that are to be followed to cultivate seaweed. So this organization, via the Seaweed's mission, they will be establishing model demonstration farms wherein the farmers of the coastal states would be able to take a look at how exactly seaweed cultivation is done. Then establishment of seaweed nurseries. What do we mean by seaweed nurseries? When we talked about that there is lack of raw material available to them. So these seaweed nurseries will do the needful of supplying them the requisite raw material that is required via to do seaweed farming. And then establishment and demonstration of processing technologies or recipes for edible seaweeds, right? So the awareness of eating styles and recipes for seaweeds also is, as we saw, is lacking. So the mission is also going to fulfill the need for that as well, where it is even going to popularize the recipes that can be used with respect to seaweeds. And an activity on seaweed cluster development, including value chain development, supply chain development, and collection of data on environmental, economic, and social impacts of seaweed projects in the country, which means that apart from supplementing the farmers, it would also take care of the larger needs of the sector, where it would take care of cluster development. What do we mean by cluster development? Which means that since certain coastal states, like I said, parts of Gujarat, the parts of Tamil Nadu, which is surrounding Gulf of Mannar, so these are areas which are much high in potential of seaweed cultivation. So the mission will be focusing on developing those clusters as highly yielding seaweed cultivation areas, and they would take care of all the collection of data with respect to these aspects, right? So what can be the advantages? By an estimate, if seaweed cultivation is done in 10 million hectares or 5% of the exclusive economic zone area of India, it can provide employment to 50 million people, it can set up a new seaweed industry, contribute to the national GDP, enhance ocean productivity, abate algal blooms. Algal blooms are those events wherein in a certain water body, the amount of algae just shoots up beyond its sustainable level. And what that does is, it harms the water body. So if we cultivate that algae, if we extract that algae, that will stop the algal blooms as well, and it will sequester millions of tons of CO2, which means that it will absorb carbon dioxide, and it could also produce bioethanol for 6.6 billion liters. We saw all of these uses earlier when we discussed the benefits of seaweeds. So this was the discussion on the seaweed cultivation, where we saw mention of one potential in the article, that what is the India's potential in seaweed cultivation. We traced the development of this industry and what India is doing to make a mark for India in the seaweed cultivation sector. So with this, we move on to our next article for the day. The next article which appears in the newspaper reads, "What numbers do not reveal about the tiger conservation?" Now this article is featuring because 29th July, that is today, is the International Tiger Conservation Day. So in that context, the newspaper has featured this article. So now what becomes important for us from this article is that obviously tiger as an animal is of much importance to the UPSC examination, and we see questions pertaining to this animal and conservation of tiger in a lot of aspects. So this becomes important for us from the point of view of GS3, where we study environment. Now, what does this article talk about? This article talks about the development of tiger conservation that has happened. We remember that in the year 2005, there was extreme amount of shortage of tigers in the country, where they were on the brink of extinction, where they were almost to a level of 16,011 tigers. We saw the famous ad where they said that only this much tigers have remained. And vociferous efforts by the Indian government was taken to increase the population of these tigers. And what was set up? A body known as NTCA, or the National Tiger Conservation Authority, was set up under the Wildlife Protection Act. This body then implemented the famous Project Tiger, which we know of right now, which worked tirelessly to increase the populations of tiger in the country. So the important facts with respect to prelims are for us that the NTCA is the premier body which takes care of tiger conservation efforts in the country, which is set up under the Wildlife Protection Act, and it also implements the Project Tiger as well. Now, this body worked, and therefore Project Tiger was successful. And what entailed in Project Tiger? So building national parks and especially the tiger reserves. So tiger reserves were made in India, where those habitats which had significant tiger populations were marked out, and currently we have 53 tiger reserves in India. I think 2 more are added and the number has gone to 55. We'll have to check, but I think as of May 2022, the tiger reserves are 53 in number, which are spread across the country, right? And most number of tiger reserves are in regions such as Madhya Pradesh and such other regions. So tiger reserves were set up, which took care of conserving the tiger population. Now the author says that all of this was done and the tiger population was significantly protected and increased as well. But when we talk about the conservation efforts right now, are they enough? By only demarcating the tiger reserves and maintaining tiger population in these tiger reserves, is it enough? So the author tries to point out that there are certain other challenges as well. What are these other challenges? That when these tigers are packed in these tiger reserves, which are generally, most of the tiger reserves are surrounding with human habitations. So what we see is that a lot of man-animal conflict is resulted into, which results into death of tigers, right? And the one important factor that the author points out is about connectivity. The issue of connectivity, which means that when a small population of tigers or whatever number of population of tigers is existing in the tiger reserves or these protected areas, they are not able to travel from one area to another area. And this issue of connectivity, where they are often found on roads or other such human habitations, and it results into man-animal conflict, the author points out that connectivity between these areas is a major issue which should be the next step for tiger conservation. So with this as well, the Indian government has, the NTCA has implemented the concept of tiger corridors. What are tiger corridors? These are 32 pathways which have been identified which join these various tiger reserves. So as we see that, let's come in this example of region between Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Kerala, where there are numerous tiger reserves in a single area. Now these tiger reserves would be joined by certain corridors which would be constructed to connect these tiger reserves with one another. These are the concepts known as tiger corridors, which are in development, and they are currently 32 in number. To which author points out is that the connectivity is an issue which would lead the tiger population to be sort of just be caged in an area and not being able to move freely, which would result into more man-animal conflict. And to combat this issue, the concept of tiger corridors is being implemented. One can say that it's in its primary stage, and more needs to be done to increase the connectivity between these protected areas. And the other issue which the author flags out is of the inbreeding that can occur due to isolation. When in these tiger reserves and protected areas, we cage these tigers and they are only situated in that particular region, what happens is that those tigers, whatever population is there, they only breed among themselves, whatever the population is existing in that protected area, that results into inbreeding. How is this bad or good? When animals breed amongst themselves only, this results into less genetic diversity among them. And less genetic diversity results into weakness or other genetic mutations in these animals, which can often hamper their chances of survival. So it is therefore, as we study the theory of natural selection, it always says that there should be genetic diversity while breeding. So when we keep these tigers in isolation or in certain areas, protected areas, where they're not able to move properly, it will result into inbreeding, which would result into less genetic diversities, and eventually it would not be beneficial for the tiger population to bloom and prosper. So this is the issue that the author flags out, and one example of this which the author gives is about the melanistic tiger, which is found in the Simlipal forest. What is this issue now? the Simlipal forest, which is there in Odisha. This is the Simlipal Tiger Reserve in the state of Odisha. Now, Simlipal Tiger Reserve, this was in news recently where forest fires had broken out in Simlipal Tiger Reserve. Now, this tiger reserve is quite famous for its black tiger. These tiger reserves have the unique black tigers which are not present in other tiger reserves. The author mentions that according to a study, it was found out as to what is the reason that these black tigers and why are they black? Because of the presence of the chemical melanin in their body. And this presence of chemical melanin is the result of a genetic mutation. And this genetic mutation has obviously occurred because of the inbreeding that has occurred in that particular area. And due to this, the presence of this black tigers and the now presence of melanin not being in their genes is increasing, and therefore the black tigers or the melanistic tigers are only found in this area. So this is an example of how genetic variations can occur when inbreeding happens due to isolation. So these are the two issues which the author highlights, that the efforts of conservation up until now are going very good, but we need to take care of these issues as well for the tiger population to really thrive in the country. So this was the discussion with respect to this article, and we stop here and we'll take up the important articles from the tomorrow's newspaper. Thank you.